Thank you so much for very, very kind introduction. I really don't deserve it, but I'm really honored that not only I've worked with a lot of you guys, but I really consider you friends and family that I chose for myself. When I started working with human rights 6 years ago, my reasons were very selfish and personal. I wanted to live freely and to date the people I like without fearing for my life. I wanted to go to school without hearing comments about my hand gestures and mannerisms, or comments about the fact that I'm a big Celine Dion and Ellen DeGeneres fan. I wanted to simply create a safer environment for myself living in Iraq. So I had two choices. One is to continue living in fear and in secret every time I date someone, or try and do something about it, and maybe the fear will be less and something will change. So I started working with organizations like Madre and Outright, supporting different marginalized groups in Iraq. I interviewed a lot of LGBT+ individuals. The first person I interviewed told me that how as a transgendered person, she's been trafficked since the age of 7, when she was kicked out of her house by her stepfather. Then I documented the story of a gay guy who has been tortured and raped by members of the local armed militia. Another transgendered person told me that she's been raped by the police forces in charge of checkpoints in Baghdad when they saw that her body did not match her sex on the ID card. I couldn't feel more overwhelmed after these interviews. That's when I realized that the extent of human rights violations are much bigger than I thought. People are denied their basic rights. They're tortured, bullied, and even killed for being different. It made me feel sick when I saw how unimportant and invisible we were. It was outrageous that not only we face discrimination and violations on a daily basis, but we're also silenced and are unable to report it. Who would we report it to? The government, ISIS, other armed groups, the society, and even in our families most of the times are direct threats to our own lives. Almost every LGBT+ individual I have met in Iraq told me that they feel alone. So continuing my job after that was no longer a choice. It was my passion. It was the best reason why someone like me should be alive. I decided to become more vocal and visible and started working with some amazing human rights activists like Yanar Mohammed, like Jessica Stern, like Sean Kirvan, and many others. I learned so much from those people. I traveled around the country to understand the situation of the LGBT+ individuals more. I gave talks locally and internationally. We gave trainings and provided basic needs. The work we did with Outright and Madre saved lives. But this increased visibility also meant that my safe space is decreasing. It meant that I can no longer guarantee that my friends and support system can be there for me if I face a threat. I didn't even know if my family will be there for me. I faced legal complications that are still influencing my life today. I was threatened and attacked by some of my closest friends. Even the volunteer projects that I was running started suffering because some of the members did not like my reputation. It reached a point where I had to face the reality that I can no longer stay in Iraq and be alive. So I had to leave 2 years ago, and now I'm unable to go back. I'm unable to be with the ones I care about the most in weddings, and birthdays, and funerals. I'm unable to contribute to the work we're doing and expand it on the ground. Last year, I hit the lowest point of my life after being pushed out of everything and away from everyone I care about. But I couldn't let that determine whether I'll continue the fight or not. For me, it only determined how I will be involved. I want to go back to Iraq at some point. I want to be involved in changing and leading the country. Iraq has had too many failed governments in the past decades that I no longer believe that they will move forward. I no longer trust them or the system. Throughout my work, I always heard statements from the government saying that we don't really have gay people in Iraq. Often people think that the fact that the Iraqi constitution does not criminalize homosexuality is a good thing. For me, it just shows you that we're so invisible that even the law does not recognize the simple fact that we exist. So spending a few years hearing these assumptions over and over again was one of the main reasons why I thought it was time for the LGBT+ individuals to own our cause, to say that we exist, and that we don't only ask for our rights, but we also ask for our responsibility in rebuilding the country. We're activists, teachers, politicians, and doctors, and the country is in desperate need of people like us. We are as Iraqi as anyone else in the country, and we deserve the exact same rights that everyone else is asking for. So I reached out to all the supporters we had previously and asked them if they would be interested in joining something like Iraq Queer. 3 out of the many said yes. And we launched our website on March 3rd, 2015, having content in Arabic and Kurdish and English, some of which is not available anywhere else, not offline, not online. A few months later, we turned into a human rights organization, an organization that is leading the first queer movement in Iraq's public history, a small organization that is producing knowledge, that is giving trainings, leading international advocacy efforts, and providing advice and guidance. We have a monthly reach of 11,000 readers through the website, and a weekly reach of 8,000 people on social media. Our team grew from 1 person to 40 people. 40 diverse youngsters between the age of 18 and 32. A group consisting of Arabs and Kurds, Muslims and non-Muslims, LGBT+ and straight. A group that proves that how strong our differences in Iraq can make us, that it is not hard to coexist, that we don't have to take someone else's right in order for us to exist. In fact, we make it clear that we stand for every individual's right in the country, regardless of our personal opinions. And even though we've been receiving a lot of threats and negative feedback from a lot of people accusing us of destroying the society's values, the reaction we received from the LGBT+ individuals just showed how desperately needed the existence of Iraq Queer was. Those individuals reach out to me and say, we can finally identify with someone who isn't ashamed of who he is. We finally have a group of people who advocate on our behalf. A lot of people ask me, what gives you hope, given that you work in a difficult environment? It's when we receive messages from unexpected allies who tell us that even though that they're Muslim, they believe in equality and human rights, and that's not against their religion. Or when we help someone realize who they really are. But the most important reason of all is the amazing people that I'm working with at Iraq Queer, and all the amazing activists we work with in partner organizations. It's people like you who have been working for human rights for so many years and are still committed to keep fighting and inspire generations. That's why it is so important for us at Iraq to have this platform. Events like this, pride events around the world, and when any country passes new laws that ensure equality, make the spaces of homophobes and other extremist groups smaller and smaller. That's why you all need to realize that your fight does not stop when your country passes the laws you're asking for. That only means that you need to take the fight to the global arena and support groups that don't have the same freedoms in their countries. Countries where a lot of people and activists are coming from and are here with us today. But that doesn't mean that I'm here to ask you to fight the fight for us. We're very passionate and capable of fighting it ourselves. But I am here to urge you so that you support the movement and activists around the world. Because we will not be as successful if we did not have access to the experience, the knowledge, and the resources people like you have. People who know what it takes to achieve the goals we are working for. Together, we must tell the Iraqi, the Kurdish, and any other government that is or intends to abuse its power that it's not okay to violate human rights. It's not okay to use the excuse of fighting terrorism and ISIS to justify their legalized form of terrorism. It's unacceptable to tell us that it's not time to talk about LGBT+ rights. In my opinion, it's always time to talk about human rights. And LGBT+ rights are the exact same as any other human's right. And they need to be implemented and protected, and we will make sure that happens. Maybe, and throughout the sessions, we heard that the number and the power of extreme right-wing groups are increasing. And that is true. But you know what? Look around you now. So are we. Thank you.